Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's May 2nd, 2019, and I'm outside and I'm near where the work area chicken coop is there. And one of the things that I'm doing today is getting some soil and translocating soil from areas that it's not necessary to have the soil, such as in some of the sediment collecting swale systems. So slow soil building through the swale systems, and we'll go over to one of those in a minute. And another location is when I'm having my spillways, when I'm designing my spillways, it's helpful after a significant rainfall to see, well, where's the water settling? Is it flowing in the direction that I want it to go? Now, last year I posted a couple of videos where I put the swales, the drainage swales going around this area here, going around and dumping into Pond 5. And I'll put a link in the upper right hand corner to that video. And this soil is really important to gather as much of this nice rich topsoil that I can and put it in locations where I'm going to be planting extensions to food forests and all. So one of the areas that I hopefully have posted a video yesterday that was shot back in November last fall, when I was planting and doing some sheet mulching and wood chipping some of the almond trees. And I'm going to be doing more of that over the next couple of days, but I need to prep the site first by gathering as much soil as I can for the locations where the almond trees are going. And I'll explain that further in just a moment. So one of the locations that I've come to is the beginning of the soil collecting system here behind me here. So there's going to be a living fence going up alongside here, and this is all hugelkultur pits below this area, and hugelkultur set material on top of it, and then wood chips, like a back to Eden sort of system on top of this. And that's going to be a living fence in place of where the fence is right now. However, since the property has a slope going down in this direction and I want to keep all the nutrients and the water on the property, what I'm doing is extending a drainage swale, if you will, or a spillway coming from the runoff that comes down, coming from the east side of the property, and the west side of the property is lower. The southwest areas are the lowest areas. So I'm gathering the nutrients and water as it comes down over the surface and it doesn't absorb into the system, creating a barrier with the hugelkultur and wood chipped and living fence here. And that allows me to gather the water as it comes down towards me, goes back around the work area, the coop, and extends out around and dumps into Pond 5, and that can go on to Pond 6 and Pond 7. So what I've been doing is, so one of the areas where water was collecting, it had a little bit of a low spot, was right up there, so I went ahead and took out the topsoil that was obstructing it. So up that way is much higher ground. The water works down, coming down towards this way, but we had some pooling, so I relieved the pooling by removing the soil that was just that was obstructing the flow of water coming down to this drainage swale here. So I'm going to go around now to another location. I'll be coming back over here and ultimately harvesting some of this soil. You can see where I brought Optimus Prime, the front end loader, up there and got some. I'll be coming over here with Bumblebee and Optimus Prime and getting some more of this material out, working my way up there. This will be done over several times, trying to make sure that we get as nice and smooth a flow as we can to go around and collect all the nutrients and water and put it where we want them. So let's go on out back where we're putting some of that soil. Okay, so I'm over here near where the almond trees were planted. So in that recent video that I just posted that was shot last fall, I think it was November 4th, behind me is where we transplanted the Hall's Hardy almond trees. And I'll just mention now, there's two different types of almonds. We're in zone 5A. We get really harsh winters here, very hard, long duration winds from the west over in that direction, and the property really drops off, so we get extremely high winds here. and the all-in-one hardy type of almond trees. We bought those. They survived a couple of years, but they just couldn't withstand the extreme temperatures we have here. The Hall's hardy almond trees did withstand our climate. And we're in Oswego, New York, north of Syracuse, near Lake Ontario. Lots of overcast, lots of cold winters, and nowadays we're getting some droughts during the summertime as well. So I've been talking about harvesting soil, and you could see those mounds in the background there. And I'll mention this, in the previous video that I filmed back in November 4th, 2018, where I had a big sty in my eye, there was a huge bush right here, and that was a variegated willow bush. Beautiful variegated leaves with pink, white, and green leaves. The stumps I've transplanted over to the stone wall living fence over there, and that's where the female and one male sea buckthorn or seaberry plants are also planted over there. That's all a deep, big hugelkultur pit below it, and there's going to be back to Eden sort of wood mulch on top of that as well. And I still have a lot more to extend going down there. I'd work at it as I get the opportunity. But one of the things that's going to happen over time is, well, one thing that has happened. So the property slopes from where I'm standing away from me down that way. So where that stone wall is back there, where the living fence is going, that's 4.5 feet lower than where I'm standing right now. And it's probably about 8 feet high. We're standing about 8 feet higher than just on the other side of that fence, the neighbor's property. And their property really slopes down. In the fog way back there, you can see the tops of the trees way over, you know, a few hundred yards away. So the winds really whip across here. So it's really important to have a living fence that has a decent barrier. So again, this is all an almond tree area, Hall's hardy almond trees that we've selected for this area. And I showed that we did the sheet mulching and transplanting the Hall's hardy plants, or planting out the bare root trees. I'll be doing the same thing either today or tomorrow here. I haven't received the trees yet, so I'm doing prep. So we've gathered some of the soil from the other area that we talked about, the other two areas over by the aviary and over by the living fence by the work area, and going up along the east side, the west side of the property. Another place I'm gathering soil from is this drainage spillway here. It's a drainage swale that drains pond 5 back here. Now those are some of the curly willow trees right there that we harvested some of the hardwood from it. I planted the big posts, and I did hardwood cuttings, long hardwood cuttings, and created a living fence way over to the east side of the property so we could create a visual and sound barrier around our neighbor's place. But this pond, after a rain, is a really good time to go ahead and evaluate the drainage or spillway swale here that takes the water from basically the west side of the property here, and we go back southeast with this drainage swale, bring it around over into pond 6, and then ultimately into pond 7. Now that area between pond 6 and pond 7 is the area where the hugelkultur area is, and we took all the sea buckthorn out of there. More videos to come on that area. But you could see there's some exposed soil right over here. I did some work after digging out another one of those huge bushes that were over here, and that's the willow bushes. And then I harvested some of the soil to fill in the ground where the stump was. But what we'll be doing is harvesting soil out of the spillway. These swale spillway areas are tremendous soil collecting reservoirs. So all the leaves from this deciduous forest that fall into this area, the ducks work in these areas as well. Many plants grow up in this area. So every couple of years we get a couple inches of soil that gets created in here, excuse me. So I'll be taking Bumblebee and harvesting some of the soil along this path all the way down, working on the contour here to smooth things out as much as possible, because each time I just try to do a little bit more of a manicuring or softening up the edges of these systems. But this water loaded with nutrients, not only are we going to harvest the soil, but that goes into our base soil, which is really bony gravel, and it works its way downhill. Now, as we go downhill towards that living fence way back there, one of the things that we have to think about is well, all of the roots of these trees could get saturated during the wet seasons and stress them out, and they become more susceptible to disease. So we build up the paths where the trees are going to be transplanted into. So we create mounds so the roots are going to be able to stay dry, because in between the rows of plants, whether you see some of the blueberry bushes there and the Hall's hardy almonds are planted in those same rows, we're going to be putting layers of wood chips in between, and they're going to retain moisture. They're going to suppress weeds. They're going to help to provide fungal food for the adjacent soil for the almond trees that are there as well. So I hope this is all making sense. The point that I wanted to make is, one, even though you don't want to use your heavy equipment after a rain, you want the soil to firm up because you do less wear and tear on your equipment. But after a rain is one of the times where you can really see where all of the water is flowing and the direction, and if there's pooling in locations. So after a rain, it's a really good time. And also when we gather, that's a good time to harvest that extra soil, especially from all these areas that are low-lying areas where sediment starts to build up. We can take that soil, really nutritious, beautiful soil, to plant the trees in, to add to your food forest and all. But when we're doing it, we need to think about the future. If we're building up the other part of the property, that can create a bit of a lull, in a low spot in the property, and you don't want your fruit trees and nut trees sitting in the low spot. You want to have them up high. So pre-think ahead of time. Get your soil built up to those areas, because eventually the intervening or the interpaths will also be filled up with soil as well, ultimately. So I hope this all makes sense. I'll probably set up a camera and shoot some of it. I don't know. We'll see what follows in this video. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them below. Certainly, folks, give us a thumbs up if you found this of value, and share it at will. Thanks so much for watching, folks, and have a great day. Bye-bye now.